If you love the class dynamics of Downton Abbey or the culture of a post-World War I England, or you enjoy a good mystery, but you really wish the investigator could cross class divisions with keen insights, emotional intelligence, and a touch of psychology, or if you want to step into the world of bohemian artists, aristocratic families, and working class grief, uncovering not just a potential murder, but the deep social fractures of a changing nation. If so, then today's book just might be for you. Today, I'll be reviewing Messenger of Truth by Jacqueline Winspear. Welcome to Spencer Reads Everything. I'm your host, Spencer Duncan. I'm continuing my journey through the Maisie Dobbs series, which I've been reading book by book, and I have to say, each installment adds more layers to the fascinating housemaid turned detective. Today we're diving into Messenger of Truth, the fourth book in the series, and one that stands out for its exploration of art, loss, and the bitter divides of British society in the 1930s. The Maisie Dobbs series, written by Jacqueline Winspear, follows a uniquely qualified private investigator in post-World War I England. Maisie began life as a servant, earned an education at Cambridge, and served as a nurse on the front lines. Now she uses her sharp mind, emotional sensitivity, and psychological training to take on cases that often reveal much more than just the facts. They uncover personal wounds, social fractures, and the lingering impact of the Great War. Each book blends mystery with a deep dive into the emotional and societal aftermath of trauma, class inequality, and recovery. Just a word on the author herself. Jacqueline Winspear is a British-born author best known for the Maisie Dobbs series, which debuted in 2003 and quickly gained critical acclaim. She was raised in Kent, England, and then she moved to the United States in the 1990s and drew on her family history, especially her grandfather's experience in World War I, to craft the emotional depth and historical detail of her novels. Before becoming a full-time writer, she worked in academic publishing and as a professional trainer in personal development. Her writing blends meticulous historical research with a deep interest in psychology and social healing. Now, for a summary of the book itself, I will have some spoilers, not too many. I do think it's important to give a decent summary of the books in a long series like this, because I do think that it is very easy to get them mixed up. I believe there's a total of 18 books in this series at this point, or actually I believe this series is done. So I will give you a summary. I will probably share some details that could be considered spoilers, but I do also try to reserve the biggest spoilers for the final conclusion of each of the investigations. I try not to let too much be known about that so that you can still dig in with that. But there is more to these books than just those cases. Also, the character development is a big part of them. And so I will be sharing more about that, which you may also consider part of a spoiler alert. So just be aware that that is a tightrope that I am trying to walk when I give you my summaries. But on to my summary. In Messenger of Truth, Maisie Dobbs is hired by journalist Georgina Bassington Hope, whose twin brother, Nicholas, a celebrated and provocative artist, has died just before the opening of his most ambitious exhibition. The official verdict is accidental death, a tragic fall from scaffolding while preparing his centerpiece. But Georgina isn't convinced. She believes Nicholas was murdered. As Maisie begins her investigation, she steps into the complex and often contradictory world Nicholas inhabited. So you have bohemian artists and wealthy patrons, and you also have war veterans and political radicals. You have gallery owners and dock workers. So everyone seems to have had strong feelings about Nicholas and his work. Some revered him, others resented him. And his final work, which is a missing triptych, may have made him more dangerous to certain people, probably the wrong people. Maisie's inquiries lead her from fashionable art galleries in Mayfair to bleak studio compounds on the Dungeness coast and the working class neighborhoods of London's East End. And along the way, she uncovers not just secrets about Nicholas, but deeper truths about war, grief, class, and the power of art to challenge and threaten the status quo. Throughout this whole storyline, she is meeting all sorts of interesting characters, especially some very powerful characters, and people that have a tendency to just throw their money away and to just do whatever they want and have a somewhat carefree lifestyle, which can, of course, be very troublesome to her, as well as the people that she engages with from her more humble background. So you can see where that class division might come in. I will not tell you exactly what happens to resolve this case, but I will just let you know that there is a lot going on, especially in the higher echelons of society. And that is the main mystery in this book. However, there is running parallel to this central mystery a very heartbreaking subplot involving Maisie's assistant, Billy Beale. His young daughter, Lizzie, falls seriously ill, and the family's financial limitations and housing conditions make it nearly impossible to get her the help she needs. So despite Maisie's growing concern and Maisie's willingness to help financially and in any way that she can, as well as this ongoing challenge of the situation in which they live, all of that, unfortunately, does not resolve the sickness, and Lizzie will eventually die. And I mean, her death, so it's not the result of malice or neglect, but really, I mean, it's an example of just a society where medical care is unevenly distributed and working class families are forced to carry much of the extra burden on themselves. And in this case, also in a silent, grieving way. And I think that is very indicative of the time and place and this class stratification that is a big part of this particular book. I think it's somewhat of a through line throughout all of the books. I mean, Maisie Dobbs herself comes from a very humble origins, and yet it is her opportunity from rubbing shoulders with much more influential individuals that gives her the opportunities that she does to become this well-renowned investigator. I don't know if she's well-renowned, but the point is that you're certainly seeing that the class divisions are having a real impact. And with that, you do have Billy continuing to work for Maisie, but now this, burden of this incredible personal loss, it makes this storyline become a deeply affecting portrait of post-war suffering from an individual who has already suffered significantly from the consequences of the First World War. And it also highlights the book's most powerful idea, and that is that injustice is not always found in some kind of blunt murder weapon, but it is often found in the systems that let people fall through the cracks. And that is, of course, a heartbreaking subplot that is going on that is also really important for a variety of reasons, especially for helping us understand the characters with which Maisie Dobbs is working. I will say, this is my reaction to this book in particular. I did like Messenger of Truth. I think that just like the other books in the series so far, that the author, she continues to build a compelling and emotionally rich world through this Maisie Dobbs character. I would say that the mystery is engaging, although it's not always a whodunit. And it's not always just about catching the criminal. It's also about how the trauma lingers and how class shapes the lives that people are allowed to live, and how hard it can be to speak the truth in a world that can reward silence. I think that the death of Billy Beale's daughter is not just this tragic moment, but it is specifically an indication and a reminder of just how much easier it was for someone to lose a child simply because they were in a different class and at the wrong time. The 1930s, we are thinking at this point that medicine is certainly getting better, but we're still a long ways away from certain things. There is not going to be a whole lot of mass inoculation efforts just yet, and the disease that she actually dies from is something that, if it had been caught earlier, would have been much more manageable. And the fact that they didn't have the resources to go for a simple checkup is what prevented her from getting that simple and very accessible resource for other people with more means, that would have prevented this. And so it was a matter of their situation just eventually leading to this tragic and really difficult moment in the book. I have to admit that the death of Lizzie was devastating. And even though I know that this book is rooted in a time and place where childhood mortality was tragically common and where nearly everyone was still reeling from the losses of World War I just still reading about that made it challenging. I actually kind of struggled to finish from that point on. I could not stop thinking about it in the moment that she passed away. It was hard. I guess I'm just at a point in my life where whenever I hear about tragedy like that, even in a piece of fiction that is dealing with a place long ago, just the ability to bring these characters to life still made that a really challenging moment for me. And I do think that is something that you should be aware of, and I have a feeling that I may encounter that more, again, considering the whole context of this series. With that being said, who is this book for? Well, I will say this about this book in particular, but also a lot of what I'm about to say deals with this series as a whole, as far as I know it, at least up to book 4. This is a book for readers who love historical fiction that does more than, say, just, dress up in period pieces. I do think that there is profound amounts of research that has been put into this. So if you're looking for a thoughtful exploration of post-World War I England, where the class divides are rigid and grief is everywhere, and you may have ideas about the changing world of art, then I think that this will be right up your alley. I think it's for fans of this character-driven story where emotional depth matters as much as the plot does. That isn't to say the plot's not interesting, but I will say that you have other things that are being just as much highlighted as the plot. I'd also say that it's a great pick for readers who appreciate a detective who doesn't just chase suspects, but listens, observes, and understands people. I frequently refer to another series that I have finished, the #1 Ladies Detective Agency, which, if that sounds interesting to you, please go check out any of my videos on that or the playlist for it. But I actually think that this one has, it's a little different. I think you could find some comparisons, but I do think that this series, and I think Maisie in particular, is a uniquely empathetic investigator, and this book leans into that strength. Now, I would also say, looking at that other series, that the main character in that, Precious, is also known for her empathy, but and actually also because of the time and place that it occurs, you certainly also have these questions of people dying unnecessarily. In the case of the #1 Ladies Detective Agency, that is going to be dealing primarily with the HIV/AIDS epidemic in sub-Saharan Africa. But I don't think that it deals quite as much with that emotionally challenging element of class and societal divide. I think that Maisie Dobbs leans into it a little more, and that's something worth remembering if you're going to pick this series up. That said, that this specific entry is also a little different from the earlier entries in the series. Here, there's really just one central mystery, so the death of Nicholas Bassington Hope is pretty much all that you're looking at, in addition to what's going on with Billy Beale. The previous books often had multiple investigation threads or overlapping cases, but this one feels a little more focused. You still get that rich development of the secondary characters with what's going on with Billy and his family, but I'd say that the narrative generally stays anchored in a single case. So if you're okay with a slower, more layered approach, then I think that you'll find this also very appealing. Who is this not for? Well, this book, and really this whole series, is not for readers who expect a gun-toting, action-packed detective story. Maisie Dobbs isn't chasing criminals through alleyways or pulling a weapon at the climax. She investigates through quiet observation, empathy, psychological insight, and a deep understanding of human behavior. So if your ideal mystery involves car chases or shootouts or pulse-pounding suspense, this book in particular may feel too understated for your taste, but also I would say that broadly for this series. It's also worth noting that this installment leans more heavily into themes of class conflict and social injustice, although I do think that probably exists in all of them to some degree. It is, I think, much more apparent in this one. And I think that the contrast, especially between Nicholas Bassington Hope's privileged world and Billy Beale's working class struggle, is stark. And so the central to the novel's impact, this may be something that people also really don't want to engage with. There's one mystery in this book, but I would say there are many wounds that make this a very challenging book for some. And finally, I'd say that the emotional toll of Billy Beale's story is intense. The death of his daughter isn't a plot twist. It is just a quiet, devastating reality. I think that it's handled with care, but like I said, it is hard to read. So if you're not in the right headspace for a storyline that confronts the everyday tragedy of poverty and grief, especially at that time and place, then this may not be one that you want to come to just yet. All in all, Messenger of Truth continues the slow, deliberate brilliance of the Maisie Dobbs series. It offers a tightly focused mystery, rich historical detail, and a deep emotional core that lingers long after the last page. Whether you come for the art world intrigue, the investigation into Nicholas Bassington Hope's death, or the heart-wrenching subplot with Billy Beale, what you'll find is a story that refuses to shy away from the quiet devastations of life. And that is generally how I would characterize this. Of course, I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on this book in the series, or any of the other books in the series, or just your thoughts on maybe long-running mystery series like this. Again, I've already referenced my other playlist that I have going, the #1 Ladies Detective Agency. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on these things. Please let me know what you're thinking in the comments. And also, again, please check out this playlist playlist or my other playlist, any of them that might sound interesting to you. Don't forget that I read everything, hence the name of the channel. And so if these are not your things, if you're not into long-running mystery series, you can go find some epic fantasies. You can go find a great deal of nonfiction. There's a lot of good stuff on my channel that you can check out if you are interested. And speaking of which, if you're enjoying this video or any of my videos, please feel free to share them. The more people that are aware of this channel, the more videos I get to make. And don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on those notifications, and until next time, keep those pages turning.